What if your life started out on a factory floor? Then it took a detour into stockbroking before circling back to machines, automation, and mentoring young minds. That's the arc of Vineet Majgaonkar, entrepreneur, innovator, and chairman of Armstrong Dematic. Vineet didn't just build a company, he built India's intralogistics future, one prototype at a time. And yet, what stands out most is not the scale of the machines, but the depth of his leadership. A leader who believes in storytelling more than shouting, who talks about alchemy, not just analytics, and who sees education not as CSR, but as a legacy. So how do you lead when the world around you keeps accelerating? How do you protect your values in a space that's all about speed, precision, and performance? And what does it take to help people see themselves as heroes right in the middle of chaos? If you have ever wanted to lead differently, not harder, not louder, but better, this one's going to stay with you. I'm Antony Alex, and you're watching Season 2 of the Leadership Lounge.
Paradox of value versus valuation is what I learned at the stock exchange. And I don't want to sound a cliche, but we actually took Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj as our role model of leadership at that point of time. A leader should always inspire his or her people to push their boundaries, to push their limits, to inspire them to do more than they think they can do. The first and the easiest channel is listening to your customer very carefully. Because innovation and failure, these often go hand in hand. If you are a great leader, often the biggest risk that a great leader has is becoming a banyan tree. And then if you become a banyan tree, as big as a banyan tree, nothing grows under the shade of a banyan tree. So it's very important for the leader to prune himself, to keep himself trim, stay like a palm so that the other palms grow too. Be absent for your team.
Be absent for your team. Well, I hope my team is listening to this, and I hope I take this forward.
I'm seeing their faces delighted.
All right. Welcome to the Leadership Lounge, Vineet. Thank you so much. You've had a long drive getting into Mumbai from Nashik on the newly minted Samruddhi Expressway. What was that like?
Yeah, thank you, Antony, for having me here. And yes, I did take the Samruddhi Expressway, a nice new highway that we all can boast of as an achievement. Although I do miss the mists of the old highway. I'm accustomed to taking the old highway, the turns to the hills, rather than the tunnels of the expressway. So, and the journey to the zephyrs and the clouds and the waterfalls.
That you'll miss.
I miss those.
It's the price you pay for maybe innovation, modernity, call it what you will. But I think the two coexist. So I think we can, use that, take whichever one you want to use depending on your mood that particular day. All right, Vineet, I want to take you back to your early days on the floors of Mahindra and Mahindra, which were part of your early days, or your stockbroking days. Can you share a little bit about what those were like and how it made you who you are today?
Let me start with my Mahindra days. While I joined Mahindra as an engineer and worked alongside quite a few engineers, and we built machines, we built tools and dies. But you know what? The most I learned came from the blue-collared ones. And a lot of what I even do today, I learned from the real shop floor guys, the CNC operators, the tool makers, the die makers. And the most challenging part was to get into their fold, because I think young engineers often tend to try to descend from the top. What I exactly did was I became one amongst them. And when I became one amongst them, they took me under their wings and they shared a lot of secrets with me, of secrets of manufacturing, secrets of precision. And those things you don't get to learn in the books.
Or in any engineering school.
or in any engineering schools. And I think that is something which has built a very rock solid foundation for me when it comes to my knowledge about manufacturing and precision manufacturing, which I learned there. The stock exchange days, it's also important in life to know what you don't want to do.
Right.
And I think I learned a lot of what one should not do in the stock exchange. And no offense to our friends who are already in the stock exchange, who are in that world, no offense, but these are
just
personal.
Not for you.
It's just not for me, these are personal choices. And what I learned there is more about the paradox of valuation and value creation. On one hand, we see the world which creates so much value from nothing. And a simple example I may give you is the farmers, for example. You sow a seed and you grow from 1 to 100, and that's the value creation. And on the other hand, you have the bourses, the financial world, the stock exchange. Per se, the stock exchange does not create any value. All the derivatives of stock exchange and everything else, all of that stuff, I don't look at that as value creation. That's a complete game of valuation. And after spending enough time in stock exchange and with some life-changing experiences, I realized that the game of valuation doesn't intrigue me, doesn't fascinate me. And that's what I learned at the stock exchange. There are some very practical techniques which I learned which do come handy. For example, I do have a knack of just remembering a few numbers, because I'm talking about stock exchange when National Stock Exchange did not exist. When
this was only BSE time.
Only BSE time, that too, the physical trading. There was no computers.
No demat, nothing.
Nothing. This was all on paper. I'm talking about those days. So I was between 90.
Early 90s?
Yes, this was 1990, 91, up to almost 94, 95. That was the period. So, yeah, the paradox of value versus valuation is what I learned at the stock exchange.
It's very interesting that you say that, Vineet, because there are not too many founders or CEOs who would say that, right? Because it's the ultimate goal of every chief executive or a founder to list their organization, take it public. It's almost like a badge of honor. I've taken my company public and I've given my people an exit and all of that. And you've taken a very different approach. In fact, you have built Armstrong, into this prototyping machines to global intralogistics company, and you've done it as a fully bootstrapped entity, right?
Yes.
You've never raised a single rupee of capital.
Yes.
Your brother and you
Yes.
were the founders, and until very, very recently, you've remained and kept it as just the two of you as the shareholders. You've run the business like that without raising any capital. Today, you see so many young entrepreneurs, probably those who are at the age that you were when you started Armstrong, rushing to raise round after round after round, right?
Yeah.
You've never done that. Yet today Armstrong is a $100 million valued company. It's very different from the way people have built organizations, right? I'd like to understand from you, Vineet, as to why you chose this path as opposed to, going to the market, raising money, or even, maybe large bank loans or what have you, any form of capital, right? Why haven't you gone down that path?
So actually, to be honest, I'm not sure if I should say that I chose the path. I would say that this path evolved. And I just spoke about the valuation versus value creation paradox. So I think that when you build a company, you first ought to be very clear about the core purpose of your company. And the purpose of our company somehow was value creation and not valuation. I remember the first time when we got a big order. This was in 2006, and at that, by those days standards, for us it was a big order because it was almost about 4 crores of an order. We were still budding, we were still in an early phase of scaling. And we went to the bank actually, because we did not have money to service this order. We did go to the bank. The AGM of the bank said, oh yeah, well, nice. And this order was from one of the Fortune 500 companies.
Very good.
And we went to the bank. I'll not name the bank, but it's our very own bank.
Okay.
And the bank, the AGM said that, okay, why don't you speak to the appraiser and tell him about this fantastic order that you've got, and maybe we can fund you for that order. And we went and met the loan appraiser, And we explained him that, look, sir, this is a 4 crore order that we have got from a Fortune 500 company, a supply of some automation stuff into their warehouse.
You wanted some working capital basically.
We wanted a working capital, and X portion of this order, of this input comes from Germany. So that part we will need some funding because obviously.
So you wanted some forex funding as well.
We wanted
rupee
some forex
and
funding,
both.
rupee, forex, both.
Yeah.
And then he heard us out and he said that, okay, fine, and where do you do this? Where do you plan to build all these machines? So we told him that we are at this obscure place called Satana, which is in Nashik district, at the border of Maharashtra and Gujarat, a 40% Adivasi region.
Yes.
And the rest is all farmers and, you know, a little bit of traders. And the moment I said Satana, his jaw dropped. He said, Satana, how can you do this in Satana? Looking at his face, you know, I thought there's something fishy here. I mean, I thought that whether this is going to get through or not. So I just asked him with a blank expression. I said, sir, I'll really thank you if you fund me for this order. But if you have no plans to fund it, please tell me right now.
Don't waste my time.
Yeah. Don't waste my time. I'll be twice thankful.
Yeah.
And after a pause of 10 seconds, he said, I can't fund this. How can you do automation and robotics in this village? I can't make a case in the bank. So I actually thanked him twice. I said, I promised you I'll thank you twice. So thank you and thank you. And the moment I got out of the bank, and we had this order in our hand, that's when I reached out to all my suppliers, including the German suppliers. That's when I reached out to all my people that, hey guys, we are going to do this order. And if we all collaborate, in whichever way you all can, we can make it happen.
So at that point, Vineet, you decided that you are not going to take any form of funding from a bank.
Absolutely.
Right? And your thinking was through a combination of employees and well-wishers and all of that, and let's say the supplier, you'd figure out a way to get it funded.
So there was no financer, as in well-wisher, as in a pure well-wisher, yes, but no financer.
No equity?
No equity, nothing.
Okay.
I just reached out to all this. So here I say, you know, I talk about stakeholder capitalism.
Yes.
Rather than a shareholder capitalism. So the traditional way of going to the banks or raising the funds is all shareholder capitalism. This is all about money. You put in money, you churn out money.
Yes.
I'm talking here about stakeholder capitalism, wherein you rope in the stakeholders, take them into confidence, make them a partner of what you dream of doing, and then they start putting in their 100%. Can you imagine that a German supplier said that, hey guys, don't worry, I'm going to ship the entire containers of goods to you with a credit line.
Really?
A German sending a credit line.
And that too to India, obscure village.
Obscure village, 2006. The word startup didn't exist in India.
Yet you were a startup.
We were a startup, yes, but a complete, you know, a culture or a period when there was no startup culture as such.
Yes.
In such period, and Germans are known to be very strict on their payment terms and everything.
Yes.
But as they say, you know, when you really aspire something from the bottom of your heart, the universe conspires to
make it happen.
I think, you know, I have had, you know, this experience multiple times in my life. So this event, triggered actually by a bank, led us into this belief that we can do it. And the first 4 crore order that we did without any assistance from the bank, we did it very successfully. We did it without the bank. That gave us that confidence that we don't need to go to the banks. Wow. And the rest is history. So as of today, until we reached, I mean, last year, valued at 100 million, now we are even beyond that. We are a zero-loan company.
And equity held until last year by the two brothers.
Yes, a fully closely held
company. So there are so many lessons in there, Vineet, how to build a company successfully, bootstrapped, no equity other than the family equity or the founder's equity rather, and no bank loans. No.
But about the founder's equity, Antony, I must tell you that's also pretty funny. When I quit my job in 99 from Sandvik, so when my brother and co-founder, he graduated in 99, I quit my job. I was working with this Swedish multinational Sandvik.
Of course.
And all I had was a saving of 1.5 lakh rupees. And with that 1.5 lakh rupees, we both brothers, we went to Rajkot, bought a few basic machines which engineers, mechanical engineers typically work with, like the lathe, the welding, the drill machine, and put them in a truck and got them to this village called Satana. And by the time we landed up in Satana, we did not even have a roof over our head. So we actually made calls to a few farmer friends that, hey guys, this is, I mean, we have bought these machines, and can anybody, loan us their premises for some bit of a time? Can we keep these machines somewhere?
So you didn't even have a factory or a shed or some place to keep the machines?
Absolutely. Wow. So when we started, we didn't have a roof over our head. One farmer friend who also had a poultry farm, he said, look, it's June now and the rain is about to start. I can get the cattle out of my cattle shed, and your machines can go into the cattle shed for the next about 8 to 9 months.
Where would the cattle go?
So the cattle went under the tree.
Acha, because?
Okay, because now it's not hot anymore. So, so they went under. They were all under the tree. Our machines went into the cattle shed.
My God.
He said that, look, until the next summer starts, which is like maybe April. So from July to April, feel free
about 9 months.
About 8 to 9 months. Feel free, and then by that time you can figure out. Happy to say that we figured it out by December, and then we went ahead. But yeah, since you mentioned about only the family's capital, that 1.5 lakh rupees of a saving from my job, and a farmer friend's help, this was all the capital that we started with.
So this is, I don't know if this is a term, but I feel like to borrow the phrase that you used just now, stakeholder capitalism, to extend that further to say that this is stakeholder capital. You've actually raised capital, but not the conventional way. It is stakeholders who have got equity in your company in very different ways, not the traditionally understood way.
Absolutely.
But they've given you their land, their blessings. All of it has contributed to helping you take Armstrong off the ground.
Absolutely, and that remains the cornerstone of the company. Even today, that's the biggest strength that we have.
It's incredible, Vineet, how you've built this. And I also want to explore the theme of how you've got. You've mentioned that Satana, where you started out, has a 40% Adivasi population, and your organization has a sizable Adivasi workforce, right? Which many would argue that it seems a little at odds with the kind of work you're doing. It's not like you're running an agri operation. You're actually running a robotics and automation operation, right? What percentage of your workforce is today are Adivasis, and what do they do really? I mean, in a robotics company or in a robotics and automation company, what kind of work do they do?
So Antony, this now gets me started with a bigger story that I normally do.
We'd love to hear that.
Yeah. As I grew up in this village, basically I was born to these philanthropist doctors. So my parents, my father and my mother, a gynecologist, and they decided to settle down in this obscure village inspired by Baba Amte and his social inclinations.
They wanted to give back.
They lived for the society. So my father was a philanthropist, a doctor and a poet. And he settled after graduating from BJ in 1960s. He straight away went to this village, and later my mother joined him in 1965, and they both decided to stay there. And all through they worked was for the locals. So it was simple. All the Adivasis were treated free of cost in his hospital, and the rest were charged 1 rupee less than the government hospital. So this is the parentage that I got. This is what I grew up with. But actually, you know what? I rebelled, because despite of being born to doctor parents, financially we were not very well off. They had a roaring practice. They were always busy. But because of this treating free of cost and charging only government fees, our family financially would be barely kind of, we were like, you can call us the lower middle class maybe, in that range.
You had enough for the basic necessities, but absolutely none for luxuries?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Okay.
Put it right. And actually that is the reason, why I rebelled, and I decided right in my school days that I'm not going to be a doctor because, I don't want to spend my life like this.
I want to make money.
I want to make money. And the moment I got into my engineering in 1989 and I went to Pune, I decided to get into stock exchange. So I founded a friend who was already a stockbroker. I went to him, I said, look, I want to learn this from you. Because to make money, where else do you go?
Of course.
And if you don't care how you make the money, stock exchange is the right place to go. And I went there. So this friend of mine, he said, okay, fine, Vineet, what is your age? I was 17 and a half. He said, you ought to be 18 first. And why don't you come back? So I said, I can start writing the books for you at the back end. And for a good 1 year, I started writing books at the back end, and I started working.
Keeping accounts?
Keeping accounts, yes.
Okay.
This was all those manual trading days.
Manual trading days, yeah.
So they would trade in the ring during the day, and all those chits would come back home, and then there was a lot of stuff. I'll not get into.
What were your class timings like?
So I would do my college during the daytime, about 4 or 5 hours, try to do it, and then around 4 o'clock in the afternoon to late evenings, at 9, bookkeeping. And then a year later, I started actually going to the trading ring at the cost of skipping the college sometimes, quite often. And that was one world in which I grew. In 1995, a major event happened in my life. I mean, in hindsight, I can call it a major event. My father suffered from a bit of a heart trouble, and he was supposed to be operated for a bypass surgery. I'm talking about 1995. Only Breach Candy in Mumbai had the heart lung machine, and apart from that, Hinduja had just invested in it. So that was, Hinduja was new. Breach Candy was a bit settled, like 5 years. In entire Maharashtra, apart from these two hospitals, only Ruby Hall had heart lung machine only 1 year ago. So we decided to do this surgery only in Breach Candy because we didn't want to take a chance. But because there was only one hospital doing those surgeries, the waiting time was about 3 weeks. And during those 3 weeks, I went back from Pune and sat near my dad just to be with him.
Sure.
And I'm talking about the days when mobiles were still not available in India. But on the first day itself, people started coming to meet him, just to wish him well, and just to say, that have a, get well soon.
Speedy recovery, get well soon.
Speedy recovery, all that stuff. And on day one, there were about a few hundred people who just came, who just met him, who just wished him well, went back. Day two, a couple of more 100 people came, and day 3 it went on. And then all those 3 weeks, there were every day 500 to 800 people would visit in a day, and they would just wish him well, and then they would go. And I was just watching all this stuff, what's going on here. Some of them would actually bring money because they knew that he's earned a lot of goodwill, but not so much of money.
Not so much money.
Not that I required the money for the surgery, but still, 4 lakh rupees in 1995 was a big deal.
Of money, yeah.
Right. And one day, one such guy came and he called me outside the house. He said, Vineet, this is 5,000 rupees. Please keep it. You can return me after the surgery.
Yeah.
From his other pocket, he pulled out a 100 rupees note and he said, this 100 rupees, Vineet, is sent by a friend of your dad who is a Bhilla Adivasi, who is a farm laborer, and this is his week's saving. And he sent this saving, and he said that he's asked him not to quote his name, but this 100 rupees is for your dad's operation. Please keep it. And that point, when I kept those 100 rupees in my pocket, and while I was getting into the house, I just broke down. I just had tears in my eyes. On one hand, I was coming from the stock exchange, which is kind of a dog-eat-dog world. Nobody cares for anybody except money. On the other hand, this is a poor farm laborer who is, I know what it meant. For a Bhilla Adivasi, those 100 rupees was his week's saving, and if he gives away that saving, his family is going to starve practically for the next entire week. His children, his wife, they are going to starve practically for
So
the
that Bill Adivasi's house runs on about 100 rupees and it feeds them for the whole week.
for the whole week. That 100 rupees is his grocery. I'm talking about 95.
Yeah.
Right? So this feeds his groceries, gets him his groceries for the whole week. He works for the week, he manages to save 100 rupees, buys his groceries, feeds his family. Can you imagine? I mean, a person who only has his last 100 rupees, who knows his children are going to starve for the next week, has the courage, the guts to give away those 100 rupees.
And also ask that he not be named.
And not be quoted. Even today, I don't know. So, I slightly correct. Armstrong is not a zero loan company. Armstrong is a company which has this 100 rupees loan, and our entire endeavor that we are doing today and will be doing tomorrow is trying to repay this 100 rupees. So perhaps, yes, I must correct myself. Now, this is where it started, and when this happened, after my dad's bypass surgery, my friends from Stock Exchange called me. They said, "Hey Vineet, we have got the National Stock Exchange membership and we were just waiting for you." And I just told them that, "Hey guys, I'm opting out." They thought that I was traumatized by my dad's operation or something. They kept pursuing me for the next 1 month almost, but finally they got convinced that something has changed. And I didn't know what I'm going to do at that point of time, but I knew what I'm not going to do. And I decided that, stock exchange is something that I'm not going to do. What I saw in those last 4 weeks, 3 weeks before the operation, 1 week after, that goodwill, that day I understood what my dad had earned. What he had earned was not the money. What he had earned was completely a different currency. And that currency is far more powerful than the currency that we normally measure in terms of dollars and rupees. It has taken me long to tell you this story because without that, my context cannot be set. Now when you come back to my workforce, the workforce that we have, the percentage of Adivasis, the percentage of farmers or sons of farmers who work with us. So the day we decided, after that day, that 100 rupees change day, I took up a job with a Swedish multinational. I did job with Mahindra, then Swedish multinational, and I waited for my brother to graduate. In 99 he graduated, and that's when we started this company. When we started the company and we were discussing about the location.
Mumbai would be the logical choice, Mumbai or Pune?
Yeah, I had studied in Pune. We had a big automotive base in Nashik for that matter. But when me and Pranav were discussing the location, and we saw our dad smiling from the corner of his lips, and he said, "Dad, why is it amusing?" So he said, "Well, kids, look at Mahanor uncle." Now, Mahanor is a Marathi poet, a stalwart, and he's written nature poetry for almost all Marathi movies in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 4 decades. And a good friend of my father, a farmer, 7 hours northwards of my village. His village was even smaller than where I come from. But when the Mangeshkars, Lata Mangeshkar, Hridaynath Mangeshkar, Asha Bhosle, when they want some poetry written for the movies or anything, or their albums, they drive all the way to Palaskhed, which is poet Mahanor's village. They stay there for a week. They tell him the situation, the story. Then he goes into his farm. He has got his one favorite mango tree. Under the mango tree, he will put his bullock cart, incline on that, and then start writing. And then what he writes is such an epic that it becomes a prayer.
So he doesn't come to Mumbai. Mumbai goes to him.
Yes. So that's what my dad said. Look, if your product has a quality, if what you're delivering really is up to the international standards, then your location really doesn't matter, wherever you start. With that inspiration, we started this company right at that village where our dad settled and had his practice. And that's why our roots are at that village. 40% of our workforce is the Adivasis, remaining 40% is the sons of local farmers. And balance 20% is people like the rest of the professional world, they come from outside world. We do take them with great respect and pride because they are great teachers.
Yes.
To the people whom we have assimilated over these years.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, I lost track of your question.
No, I think you've answered all of it. In fact, I was just so inspired by the story because I think the belief is that you can only build successful scale companies with scale in large metros, right? Mumbai, Pune, maybe even Nashik, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai. But to hear a story like yours, where you've built it from bottom up, in a place like Satana, where nobody really, probably many people haven't even heard of it, right? It's a village in Maharashtra, and to build it, and over a 20-year, 2 decades time span to bring it to $100 million valuation is, I believe, it's an incredible story. And I sort of getting goosebumps while you were narrating about how the Adivasis have contributed to your workforce, and I feel like it's a way. If we can successfully figure out how to get the Adivasis into the workforce without uprooting them from their way of life, that would be true entrepreneur, being a true entrepreneur in my view, right? Or true capitalism, or capitalism with a heart, or empathetic capitalism, or what have you, call it whatever you want, right? Stakeholder capitalism, stakeholders which you don't displace people from where they are, but you've given them livelihood and a means to grow, right? That is a fabulous story.
Slightly, I'll tweak what you said. I honestly don't believe that I have done anything. I honestly believe that this attempt of repaying those 100 rupees has made this happen. So I would be taking a false credit if I say that I have done something.
You're being very modest.
Not really. I'm really honest about it.
Okay. Vineet, you have spoken about leadership alchemy and mentorship elixir, right? What is your sort of leadership alchemy? Could you sort of describe that, for us?
Yeah. So when you build an organization, invariably you have to explore various ways and means of leadership. When we started, because we are rooted in Maharashtra, in the hinterlands of Maharashtra, we decided to emulate a role model. And I don't want to sound a cliche, but we actually took Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj as our role model of leadership at that point of time. And I don't want our audience to misunderstand this as yet another political something, no.
But there's genuinely leadership lessons to be learned.
So there is this 5 episodes on YouTube, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, the CEO. Incidentally, it has got English slides, but the narrator speaks quite a bit in Marathi though. But this is a blow-by-blow, step-by-step analysis of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, the CEO. And all those who can actually go through it, it's worth a treat. And it initiates the thought of how to kind of look at things from the legends. And personally, I say that if you funnel the wisdom of Chanakya, Sri Krishna and Prabhu Ram into one alchemy, that's Chhatrapati Shivaji.
He is a blend of all three,
all
is it?
Three, all three.
Okay.
This is where we started. And that still remains the principle. So even if you come at my R&D center, at the very entrance, you will see a Chhatrapati Shivaji
statue
as the CEO.
Okay.
And not as the great Maratha warrior. That's a different story. But as the CEO. But the pursuit of learning leadership lessons started with this, and it still continues. But I think I got a very good rationale on my leadership principle, and I call it, not I call it, but Jim Collins calls it the level 5 leadership. So I'm a great proponent of level 5 leadership. In all successful leaders of the history, you see those trends. And the best is that level 5 leadership came as an empirical finding of the research that Professor Jim Collins was doing. And it did not come out as some management guru preaching something. So if you just want to know what are the best leadership principles, see the difference between how a level 4 leader looks like and how a level 5 leader looks like. And you will find those examples right around you, including your company, your society, your politics. And then if you really want to scale up an organization, if you really want to build a leadership in the organization, including yourself, I think level 5 leadership, where in a nutshell, personal humility and great professional will or impeccable professional will. And it's very counterintuitive. Often a huge professional will is associated with heroism, and heroism in the wrong sense I'm talking about. It's about doing heroic deeds which are one-off, which are just pulling things out. But here I'm talking about a very methodical, systematic approach of a farmer approach rather than a hunter's approach.
Right.
So that's my, and where you maintain extremely high standards. So you don't compromise on standards, you keep extreme high professional will, but you do all this with utmost humility and taking people with you. So that's my definition of leadership. That's the alchemy of leadership.
That's wonderful. In fact, I just want to go back to Shivaji Maharaj, the CEO, because there's a lot that has been spoken about his leadership ability and what he's done as a leader. Could you synthesize for us, 2 or 3 attributes of his that you have sort of imbibed into your leadership style or leadership alchemy, or call it what you will, right?
I'll give just one. Swaraj. And with the history lessons that we have learnt, we read about Swaraj is my birthright as a narrative of Lokmanya Tilak. But this word Swaraj was borrowed by Tilak from Chhatrapati Shivaji. And Swaraj, as the word goes, is my state. Swaraj, the rule of the people. So if every person in the company feels that this is my company, I think no company can ever, get into a crisis. You remember the story of Kennedy walking into the Space Center and asking the janitor, "Hey, what are you doing, buddy?" And he says that, "I'm helping put the man on the moon."
Yeah.
That's what it means. I think this is the single biggest mantra, and then you can decode him a lot.
That's staying with that theme, but also sort of, you've spoken a lot about the hero's arc, right? You write a lot about it in your posts. And how do you sort of bring out this hero's arc in each of your employees? And I think you've answered a part of that through probably, Swaraj in the context of your own organization. But if you could just elaborate on that a little bit, particularly in difficult times. Over the course of the 2 decades that Armstrong has been in existence, I'm sure you've seen ups and downs, right? It's not always been really hunky-dory or you've seen only ups in that sense. The team has probably seen lots of downs. How do you maintain, sort of the hero's arc at those times? How do you keep people motivated, if you could?
So on this, Antony, I think there are 3 simple points that if I may. Number 1 is ask more of yourself. Every leader should first of all have the first demand on himself or herself. The second principle is ask more of others. A leader should always inspire his or her people to push their boundaries, to push their limits, to inspire them to do more than they think they can do. And I have many cases where even they themselves never dreamed that they could do something like that, what they achieved. And the last bit is take away the fear. When you often build things, and when you're often building things which are not thought of before, when you start thinking out of the box, breaking the rules, of course for the better, people do go through a phase of fear because it has never been done before. It is a leader's job to take away the fear. So if you manage to do these 3 things, first lead by example, ask more of yourself, Second, inspire people, so ask more of people. And third, take away the fear. If you do these three things, I think you can inspire the life of a hero from your people. When you're doing this, I think that your conversation with your people is very important. Understanding their context, where they come from, understanding their skill sets, understanding their strengths and weaknesses. I would urge our modern day leaders that, how much time do you spend in understanding the human behind an employee? That is more important. So the day you understand the human, I think it comes naturally to you. You can help these people break the molds. And then I have several examples. For example, the head of my CNC shop, which is a high-tech stuff, is a Adivasi Bhil who joined us he was a son of a farm laborer, joined us as a welder, and he's grown himself into the head of this CNC department. Another great example is a son of a farmer, again joined us as a welder. You will be surprised and happy to know that he is the head of all three manufacturing facilities that I have. So he's over the period of so he joined us in 2002. In the last 23 years, he's grown himself to that profile. And there are many such examples where people who came from certain backgrounds and they have evolved their own profiles to a level which they had never even dreamt of. So
or neither did you, for that matter. You have never thought that they would reach where they have.
Absolutely.
Vineet, Armstrong is sort of a pioneer, a leader, in AI-driven warehouse automation, right? And again, I find it absolutely fascinating that you've built this organization from a village in interior Maharashtra with a 40% Adivasi workforce. And you've also managed to convince a lot of professionals to also migrate and live in and around that area, because they are also the purpose, I guess, what I'm coming to is really the purpose is what inspires people to keep going. But my question really is, today technology is evolving. I guess technology has always evolved at a rapid pace. It's always moved faster than humans possibly ever comprehended. And in a time of AI, again, even faster, right? I mean, things are changing rapidly, evolving on a daily basis. In your business, how are you able to ensure that you're always ahead of the curve? You're always, the technology is up to date. You have what customers need. How do you manage that? And again, in the context of where you are based.
So Antony, right when we started the company, and me and my brother, we were discussing the founding principles, that what are we building exactly? It was very important for us to define that. And we said that, look, let us have timeless founding principles. Times will change, but let the founding principles be such that they are timeless. So when we started building the company, we said, what are we building? Okay, we said we are building something like the Bosch or a Siemens, which has a legacy of hundreds of years. So we are building something which has to outlast our lifespans. The second founding principle, which was very important and where it originated from, was that we realized that at that point of time, US had 38% of its GDP coming from innovation.
Yes.
And India had only a single digit, 7 or 8%, which claimed to be coming of innovation. And coming out of innovation, the reality might still have been stark. So we said that another core founding principle of our business has to be innovation. Anything that we do has to have knowledge and know-how at its core. Of course, the third founding principle was people. Instead of uprooting people from the regions and taking them to the city, why not take the technology back to the villages and root the technology in the villages? So these kind of 3-4 founding principles, which we still believe are timeless. So innovation is one of our founding principles, and we are very, very conscious about it. Conscious so much so that my favorite phrase is, comfort is discomfort. Whenever I see any of my teammates
getting too comfortable,
I literally move them out of their zone of comfort and get them to do something which is completely out of their zone of comfort, completely new and different for them. And then, we literally shuffle people. If somebody is in a charge for 3 years, 4 years, Secondly, we also derived a very methodical approach of measuring how we maintain our innovative edge. And the measure is that 35% of our revenue, if it is not coming from the innovations that we created in the last 3 years, then we say that we are missing out on innovation. I'm happy to say today that as we speak today, almost 50%, because we have done a lot of transformation in the last 3-4 years, and especially AI coming in the last 2 years, we have done lots of changes, lots of innovative things. And with that, this year, 50% of our revenue is coming from the products and solutions that we developed in the last 3 years.
Wow. Google has this, 80-20 rule, right? Or I don't know, it's 80-20, 70-30, whatever, that you can, I think, spend 20% of your time doing just innovation, thinking up new products. And many of the new products that they've kind of come up with over the years are coming out of that time where people spend only doing nothing else but thinking about this. So, do you have a similar structure at Armstrong, or because you've mandated that 50% of our revenue has to come from an innovation in the last 3 years? How do you actually implement it? How do you get people to spend their time innovating? Because I ask, because as a very practical, it's a practical problem, right? Because everybody's focused on delivery.
Right.
You're making money, your products are going out. Do you have a team that is focused on innovation, or do you tell everybody that innovation is not a team's job but everybody's job? So spend some time thinking. How does it work in practice?
See, in practice, there are various channels through which innovation evolves. The first and the easiest channel is listening to your customer very carefully. If I may quote one episode, in 2010, we got a requirement from a retail company, and they wanted their ERP system to talk to our machines and give instructions to the machines, and the machines would perform the tasks. And then post back the information to the ERP. Today, when we say this, it's like, okay,
seems basic.
You call it Industry 4.0, you call it Internet of Things, but I'm talking about 2010. This was very new, very unique. Our machines have their own brain, but that brain does its own work. That was the scenario in 2010. What we did was, we took a CTO of an American company, an Indian CTO, to discuss with the CIO of this retail company about this particular requirement. And me and my brother, when we were watching them speak with each other, we realized that these two guys actually cannot talk to each other. They were unable to talk to each other.
Got it.
And in the process, we realized that, hey, if these two humans can't talk to each other, and here we are discussing how the machines can talk to the software system, then there is a huge headroom available here. We picked it up as an opportunity. We built our first system in 2011. And in 2012, the word Industry 4.0 was coined in Germany. So a year before this word was coined, we had already built a system called Industry 4.0, which is Industry 4.0 compliant, in which an ERP system talks to a machine and the machine talks to the ERP system without any human intervention seamlessly. So this is one small example of how innovation can originate from. There are these triggers available all around you. Another thing is, in the company, to encourage innovation, we have an award for the most spectacular failure, because innovation and failure, these often go hand in hand.
So you actually reward failures also?
Yes. We reward failures. At our annual event, we actually have this award called as the moonshot attempt. It's a positive way of saying that it was a spectacular failure, but somebody attempted something really worthwhile.
Can you give us an example of a moonshot attempt that you rewarded?
2 years ago, when we started, when AI came through, group of young engineers, they actually started building a predictive tool which can predict the assignment of autonomous vehicles in a warehouse based on the order wave, as we call it. So there is a system gets an order to be executed in a day, and then this was a tool which was supposed to analyze that entire order, and after analysis predictively it was supposed to assign the vehicles which do job in the ASRS to those tasks. On a concept level, that is the most fantastic thing
Yeah,
that
I
we
mean,
can do because
it sounds amazing, but also sounds doable. I mean, it feels like it could be done. What went wrong?
all warehouses or all businesses today, let me tell you, this sounds interesting, this is the way the business should be, but no businesses work this way. All businesses of today, they work on hindsight data.
Achha.
Your CFOs will,
Historical data.
they all take historic data. Based on that, they do some planning for the day. They say, okay, last Diwali, we had such scenarios. This happened. So this Diwali, we can expect the same thing to happen. It can be scaled up by 15%. It can be scaled up by 20%. There is no way that people are today predicting the real prediction. That how the future can evolve. That's not the way people predict businesses. Even if you look at the data that is presented in the stock markets, everything is quarter on quarter, year on year, everything is in hindsight. That's the biggest flaw of the entire business ecosystem.
Understood.
So the biggest lever of AI that we feel is the ability of AI to create a calculated prediction of the business case scenarios for the future and then evolve tangible actions at the shop floor and execute those actions so that by the time, so for example, you must have perhaps heard about an experiment which Amazon did, Amazon US, about, I think that was about 5 or 6 years ago.
Which one is this?
With the big data, they experimented that even before you could decide that you are going to buy something,
based on your...
they would start the shipping. So at that particular...
But that was on the basis of your historical data, right? They analyzed your historical data and the pattern, periodicity at which you bought certain items.
No, not really.
No?
That was on the basis of the behaviors.
Behavioral
patterns. That was on the basis of big data because, as you know, even right now, as we are talking, and as long as our phones are not in aeroplane mode, our phones are listening to us.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And there is a big talk about the privacy and stuff, and I'll not get into that right now.
That's a separate issue, yeah.
That's a separate issue, but we know that, the day I am thinking about, okay, I need to buy a new pair of shoes, and then suddenly on all the
ads will
platforms, these ads start popping up. How do they do that? So there is a huge amount of big data at the back end, which kind of everybody is sharing with everybody, by the way.
Understood.
And that model was based on the big data, on your behavior patterns that it collected from all the digital touch points that you have.
Understood.
And putting that together and predicting the behavior. And so if it took them about 3 days to ship something from the east coast to the west at a minimal cost, they would start the shipping 2 days in advance. So even you, Antony, are not sure whether you're going to buy it, but Amazon knows it that you're going to buy it.
And it would have reached the closest warehouse to you in time, so that whenever I decide to buy it, I'll get it the next day.
Exactly.
Fabulous, fabulous. So this moonshot, your way of rewarding or encouraging innovation is this moonshot attempt.
Moonshot attempt is
and it actually encourages let's say the best attempt of the year.
Yes.
Even though they haven't succeeded.
Yes.
But they feel like, yes, this is an organization that rewards me for trying.
Yes.
Fabulous.
Because on one hand, imagine this person who has attempted, who has taken that moonshot, and he's failed at it.
Yes.
And the people around him are actually ridiculing him, that if not on his face, but on his back, that he's failed. But for the same thing, imagine that he's called upon the stage.
The organization is rewarding him.
So for him personally, it makes a lot of difference.
It's a boost.
Plus, for the people who have ridiculed him, also you send out a subtle message that, hey guys, failure is not
on. Yeah,
a taboo,
failure is okay.
Yeah.
Vineet, could you share with us an instance where any kind of international collaboration or academic collaboration that you did really impacted your leadership journey, gave you insights that really sort of enhanced your leadership journey?
So Antony, in 2007, I was invited by a German company on their board, and I actually accepted that offer because I was very curious to learn the way Germans do things. And the contract was that I work in Germany for 3 weeks every month, and then I get to come back to Mumbai for 1 week. And I did this for 1.5 years. During this 1.5 year period that I worked with on the German board, there was something unique happening here back in India, and that's what I learned. My absence in India as a leader actually brought out the best of leaders in my company.
Wow, okay.
And after 1.5 years, I realized that the key people whom I worked with, they had bloomed into beautiful leaders.
Lovely.
When I was not around. So I think the biggest lesson that I learned in this collaboration was not about collaboration, not about what I learned from the Germans, of course I did learn, but the biggest lesson was that a leader needs to not be around for his people or his or her people to grow. So I think, this is the biggest. It's like, a banyan tree.
I think grows in the shade of a banyan tree.
So if you are a great leader, often the biggest risk that a great leader has is becoming a banyan tree. And then if you become a banyan tree, as big as a banyan tree, nothing grows under the shade of a banyan tree. So it's very important for the leader to prune himself, to keep himself trim, stay like a palm, so that the other palms grow too.
It's a tremendous learning from your 1.5 year trip to Bonn, and clearly, I don't know if I'm a banyan tree, but I definitely like the idea of taking a break and going to Europe somewhere for 1.5 years and seeing if, the rest of the organization can
I'm sure it will
run itself and grow. The existing leaders can grow even further. So there's a fantastic learning in that. So thank you for sharing that, Vineet.
All right. So to just sum it up, a leader needs to learn to be absent at times for his other leaders to grow. A constant presence of a leader often is constraining for his or her leadership team.
Maybe leaders could also do things like work remotely, leave the office and stuff like that.
I would more than work, because you still work and you're still into the system.
That's true. Take a break basically.
Being absent.
Don't check emails, don't respond.
Very counterintuitive. Be absent for your team.
Be absent for your team. Well, I hope my team is listening to this, and I hope I take this forward.
I'm seeing their faces delighted.
All right. Okay, so you've talked a lot about shaping young people's lives, mentoring, and you've really been very active in that space, right? Could you share a little bit more about this from the perspective of leadership, a leader's journey, right? Is it a part of paid forward, giving back, or does it actually also enhance you as a leader? Does it really, do you also learn from that entire process?
I think there are two fundamental reasons why I invest a lot in training the next generation. And I'm also on the governing body of MIT World Peace University and other few universities. Currently, I'm in deep conversations with the Pune University. We are designing a curriculum for the Vikasit Bharat. But my fundamental two reasons of this are, number one, I am myself a perpetual learner. And I am an experiential learner. I'm less of a classroom learner. So for me, I learn by doing things. And the best way for me to learn is by teaching. So when I teach or train the youngsters and share my experiences, actually in a way somewhere it is also satisfying the learner in me. So every single time that I stand in front of my either managers in the company or young children in the universities, every single time I spend about at least 2 to 3 days in reading what I'm going to speak, in reading about things, connecting that with my personal experiences, and then talking to the audiences. So those 2-3 days for me are a great, I love that journey. So it's basically for me to learn for myself. The second most important thing may sound a little, I don't know how does it sound, but when I was looking at the demographics of our country about 6-7 years ago, when 65% of our population was less than 28 years of age. And when the world was very excited about it, that hey, India is the new geography, look at the demographic, look at what future lies for them.
And we kept saying demographic dividend, that was the...
Demographic dividend.
Yeah.
To tell you honestly, I always had a spine-chilling fear that are we doing, I mean we who have practically been there through the professional journeys, are we doing enough to channelize this young raw energy into a nation building force? And the answer was no. The honest answer was no. And that was another reason why I took it up as a mission to get involved and invest my time into anything that will build the future generation for our country.
Wow. You know, staying with that theme, you've also always been very, very interested in redefining education for children in villages, right? Because again, that's where the real India in a sense lives, right? Is there a point in time or, you know, some kind of an emotional tipping point that happened where you said that I'm going to do more than just be a passive observer. I'm going to act on it. I'm going to do something to change the way education is, particularly in villages, right? Because that's what you have been actively involved in over the years. But is there a point that got you to pivot or switch or do more?
So Antony, like you've seen so far, most of my journey has been a journey of exploration and learning. And of course, I call it the Buddha moments actually, you know, the moments which trigger transformations in you.
Yes.
Whether it was my 100 rupees change or many other things. And all of us do get these triggers and we do take those triggers in a different scale. I also believe that, you know, sometimes if you modulate your personal interest on the interests of others as well, not over, but if you modulate your interests along with those, if you dovetail your personal interests along with the interests of others,
yes,
I think that culminates into a very win-win situation. As it happened in 2011, that in January of 2011, I lost my father. And I had heard my father say all through his life that young children, underprivileged children, and the orphans, they get a very hard life. And if something needs to be done, it should be for the children that we must do things. When I lost my father, I felt a huge amount of void because he was a big influence in, after the 100 rupees change, he was a big influence in whatever I did, even today what I do. And that huge void, and I couldn't overcome it for a good almost 6 months. And some of my friends also had lost their parent, but I couldn't understand why is this loss haunting me so much. After some 6 months, I decided to give up that thought. And I said that, look, there's no point in trying to overcome the grief of having lost your father. Instead, I started believing that he is still there with me through his actions and through his deeds or through his culture that he set for us. And that was my trigger to start working for the children. So anything that I do, and in Nashik district we do work a lot with underprivileged children, whether it is schools, whether it is orphans, whether it is school for the street children and the children of prostitutes. We try to make their lives easy, but all this is somewhere connected to that connection with my father, that each time we are involved in this activity or we do anything on that front, I always feel connected to my late father. So that's a medium in which we keep him alive with us. So in a way it is a selfish motive, but perhaps it helps.
But good is
the
coming out
society.
of this selfish motive, and it's almost like your father's invisible hand is propelling you forward in this direction.
Right.
It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing, Vineet. It's a lovely story, and it really gives us insight into what is moving you in many of the things that you're doing today. Vineet, you have so much to share, particularly for leadership lessons, right? Which is really what the Leadership Lounge is all about. We're trying to really distill leadership lessons, the best of from all of the leaders in India. If you had a free hand to create a leadership curriculum or a curriculum for leaders, what are some of the absolute must-haves that you must include in this?
This is a vast subject, Antony, but if I have to distill it down to a few principles, number one, I think every leader should study Chhatrapati Shivaji, the CEO. Number two, I think every leader must read Good to Great by Jim Collins, in which, especially the chapter 2, in which he demonstrates how the level 5 leadership was empirically discovered, and it was not stated by some management guru. And then at 3, I would perhaps put Ken Blanchard with his 1 Minute Manager and the Situational Leadership. So both these very brief and entertaining books, hardly 60 and 35 pages each.
Right.
But if you want to have a quick shot of leadership principles, I think these 3 should help.
Anything that is uniquely Vineet Majgaonkar that you want to share with us, that is just you?
It is the proactive pivot. Comfort is discomfort.
That is how you operate, and that's how you believe. That's your mantra, right?
Yeah,
Comfort
yeah.
is discomfort.
Discomfort, and that leads to the proactive pivot. It's so that's the 10th commandment, I say, of growth. So Ramcharan has written this. Every business is a growth business.
Yes.
And it has 9 principles. And while every single principle of those 9 is very important, he elaborates on the 3 principles out of the 9. My comfort is discomfort has helped me find out the 10th commandment, I call it, and that's the proactive pivot. And all through the 26 years, I have had occasions where we have proactively pivoted, not reactively, because today pivot has become a bit of a negative connotation.
Yes.
Okay, that you do something, you fail at it, and then you do something else. But proactive pivot is not that. Proactive pivot is a situation where you are willing to forego 80% of what you already have and latch on to something else which you believe is going to drive you into the future, into the orbit of tomorrow.
Understood.
So, a satellite that we launch, for example, you have stage 1 of a satellite launching, or the Chandrayaan, let's say, and the stage 2 and the stage 3 of the rocket. But once you are in the first orbit, and you need to move to the second orbit, and then you move to the third orbit until finally you land on the moon. So I think that's what proactive pivot is.
Proactive pivot and comfort is discomfort.
Is discomfort, yes.
Okay. Vineet, you've also sort of on many an occasion said that people are not spending enough time understanding the why, right? How do you create that culture? Is this something that you've given thought to, the culture of why?
I think that as Indians, perhaps, the easiest way to go back to the culture of why is go to the ancient roots that we had. The rishis, they spent all their life in the pursuit of why. The gurukuls, they taught the children the essence of why. Everything started with why, then how, and finally what. I think in the past, especially the 125 years of the British rule, that's the realistic number, 1818, when the Maratha Empire fell, up to 1947. That's the British rule on India, not 200 years. Anyways, so during that period, I think somewhere, the ability to question why was destroyed in this country as a culture.
From that period onwards.
Majorly. It did start right since the barbaric invasions that started on India in 500 to 600 years ago.
Correct.
But it culminated into an art form
During the British.
during the British. And that's the period when our society lost its ability to ask the question. Otherwise, we inherently did have it. How do we go back to that? It's very simple actually. Any child is born with a natural ability to ask why. And if the parents can really get out of their way and help them explore why, their why. Often the child goes to the parent and asks a question, why? And the parent thinks that it's their ownership or either to answer the question or to dispose of the question. I think neither is correct.
Let the child figure it out for themselves?
Let the child evolve that question why into the right questions. So the parent should rather help the child evolve that why into a logical whys and then just walk along with the child exploring the answers to that why. I think if we, as parents, if we all manage to do this, within the next 2 decades we can have a transformed society.
We can rekindle the scientific spirit or the spirit of questioning. Because I know a lot of parents who say, because I said so. Just do it because I said so. They never bother with either giving an explanation or encouraging the child to sort of find out for themselves or research or be curious. And that spirit of curiosity has been killed in a sense.
Absolutely. And I was fortunate to have parents who did not kill that curiosity. So when I was in my 8th standard, my dad said, if you want to know what a surgeon's life is like, Vineet, tomorrow morning you can join me in the operation theatre. So at 5 o'clock, I woke up and got ready, and with all the masks and everything, I was in the operation theatre. I was excited to see a surgery that my dad was going to perform. Because I was dreaming that in my 7th or 8th standard that perhaps I could be a doctor, like my father, my mother. And when I went to the operation theatre, and I saw and my dad was also an artist, so his incision was like precise, and the blood started oozing out from that cut, and then in the 10th minute I started feeling giddy, and I told my dad that, Dad, I can't stand here, I need to get out of the operation theatre. That's when I discovered perhaps also that if I'm in 10 minutes of seeing the blood oozing out, if I'm feeling giddy, maybe I must also reconsider whether I want to be a doctor, apart from the philanthropy that I didn't subscribe to at that point of time. The second example was then where I live. That village is directly in line with the runway of the aircraft testing facility of Ozer Airport. So when the aircrafts take off, they reach 1 Mach velocity, which is the velocity of sound,
speed of sound,
exactly on top of my village. And when any aircraft crosses that velocity, there is a big sonic boom. So as a child, I have grown up hearing that boom. And it is impossible not to notice those fighter jets in the skies. And then my next dream was to become a fighter jet pilot because I saw those jets in the sky. And Dad said, yes, Vineet, if you want to do that, why don't you join this military course? There is a 1-month military course at the Bhosla Military School in Nashik. Why don't you do that course and understand what is this world like, the world of defense?
Yes.
And I joined that with great enthusiasm. And while I was a decent horse rider and I got through the course, I realized a major flaw in me. And the major flaw is, I just can't do anything unless I get an answer to the question why. And by the ethics of the defense forces, and those ethics are really great, I think you actually need to follow the orders. So on one hand, follow the orders is the order of the defense forces, and unable to follow the orders is my DNA, unless I understand the why.
Why?
So I think
So that there's a paradox there that sort of influenced you in some way.
So that's the importance of why in my life I had to drop the career of a
Being a
fighter jet pilot because of my incapability to follow orders
To follow orders,
or to take orders.
to take orders blindly or without questioning.
Without the question, yes. And
Okay, fair enough.
see, in defense, it doesn't work. I mean, you need to follow orders.
Yeah,
When you need to
yeah.
march, you march. You cannot ask questions.
Or
So
when you go to war, you
go
just
to
have
war.
to follow orders. You
Yeah.
can't ask why am I bombing this
Yes.
place or whatever, right? So fair enough. Vineet, you're quite the storyteller. You really have a way with words, and you. So, has storytelling has it played a role in your sort of evolution as a leader, convincing stakeholders, others who, sort of you've had to deal with? Is this a part of who you are as a leader?
So, Antony, there was this occasion where, often this storytelling leads to the entire team discussing what I'm talking about. And there is a funny episode that in one of our sessions with Antony Mahindra, this was just before COVID, and we started talking about how we took robotics to the village. And the entire story that we just spoke of, Antony Mahindra got fascinated with the story, and so did our CEO colleagues at India Leadership Council. And then almost for the next 45 minutes, the entire team was talking about how modern innovation can be, moved to. So there I saw the power of storytelling that, and I don't take any credit in that. It's perhaps just a small streak of my dad being a literate, a poet, that perhaps I'm hinging on to or taking advantage of. I'm
And
not
also
a poet at all.
inspired by.
And perhaps inspired by. Yes, I mean, our foundation and our location was inspired by a poet, so that helps. But I think, that was an occasion where I felt that, even the CEOs, there were about 30 CEOs in the room, and all got swayed by the story, and it was like the Pied Piper, and everybody went into that, into that story. But in the company, I do use storytelling as a theme. In fact, I did one small storytelling even for the customers on the way we work, and we created this character who is the manager of a warehouse, and our story of telling how we work, a narrative was created through his story of how Armstrong made his life easy.
Right.
So that's how we do use story in
It's very powerful.
I think that's the greatest medium of communication, a message that really sticks. I think if you really want to send out a message that really sticks, it is storytelling which helps.
Wonderful. So we'll move to the rapid fire segment.
Okay.
And the key here is absolute spontaneity, right? So whatever comes to mind first,
Sure.
don't overthink, don't, just go with the flow, and first thing to mind, answer.
Sure. I'll
You
do my
ready?
best. Yeah.
Okay.
Bring it on.
One leadership trait you admire in others, but do not naturally possess.
It is humility. With my
Humility.
brother. Extremely down to earth. Extremely humble. In fact, to the extent of people taking disadvantage of it. And I always learn that from him. He's younger to me, but that's one thing which I learned from him.
He is extremely humble.
Extremely humble. Extremely humble.
Which Armstrong machine best represents your leadership style and why? You can give it some thought if you'd like.
Yeah. It's actually the predictability stack.
Predictability stack.
that we're
What is
building.
that?
It is about the ability of algorithms to predict business scenarios. So in that sense, it's not a machine,
Okay.
but it's the
It's a
brain,
software.
it's the brain of the machine.
Hmm.
So you have many machines working in the shop floor, and then it's the brain which controls the machine. So I think that's what,
That represents your leadership style.
yes, and the brain which has the predictive tool, so which is, which looks, so typically in the company, my job is only left to now see things, what's bound to happen 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line. I don't even need to think about 1 or 2 years. By God's grace and by my absence, I have developed enough leaders who have the capability to think of 1 and 2 year time frames.
Got it.
Only job that's left for me is what after 3 years or 5 years.
What's more difficult, making your first hire or letting someone go?
Hiring somebody for what you are good at.
So making yourself redundant and then hiring somebody to sort of do what you are good at.
Not just hiring somebody for what you are good at, but hiring somebody better than you for what you are good at.
That is hard. An invention you wish you had created?
Time capsule.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you're talking about a hypothetical invention, not a...
Well, a real one or hypothetical, but if it's hypothetical, then you still have time to create it. If your leadership had a theme song, what would it be? And you can go with any song from any language.
किसी की मुस्कुराहटों पे हो निसार, किसी का दर्द मिल सके तो ले उड़ा, किसी के वास्ते हो दिल में प्यार, जीना इसी का नाम है.
Wow, sir. Tea with GRD Tata or a fireside chat with Elon Musk?
JRD,
Any day, right? Same for me as well. Your go-to mantra before a big decision, logic, instinct or legacy?
Culture. Values.
One habit that is non-negotiable in your daily routine, even on your busiest days?
Meditation.
It happens without fail, come what may?
Absolutely.
How long do you meditate for?
About, at the shortest 15 minutes. Sometimes it can go up to days. When I used to design machines, it used to be like 4 or 5 days. So I used to be a machine designer, right? In my
But you're
initial
meditating
training.
at a stretch
Yes.
for 4-5 days?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
And so that meditation is different from this meditation,
Yes.
what I do today. So I built many machines which actually started, I started seeing them very clearly in the eye of my mind after that 4 or 5 days of meditation. And then putting them on the drawing board was just a mechanical process. And then after the machine came down on the drawing board, I could clearly sense that here is a machine which perhaps has only used my hand to bring itself into existence. I have got nothing to do with it. So that is a period when, you know, you connect yourself with the Supreme Being, I don't know if whatever that is, and that helps you sublimate your existence into a non-being. So all the machines that one, if you would ask me that, Vineet, tell me machines that you have designed that you're really proud of, the humble answer to that is that every single machine that has come out really great out of my design, I cannot claim the title for those machines because I really don't know where they came from. They just, through that meditative state, they appeared, and very humbly, and I'm not trying to be, you know, hypocritical here or trying to just pretend. It's a very humble submission that I really, and hence, until 6 years ago, I never took any patents. I let people copy those machines blatantly if they wanted to copy because
You felt that it was not really yours to
it
pick.
just it appeared. It was some supreme being which took control of perhaps this physical element of this body and then got that on the drawing board and then physically, and then pieces of metals were put together and it just appeared there. And these machines are, you know, definitely still worth mentioning because they are one of the best machines in the industry that we ever created. And there I give the example of this Zen guru in China. You know, he was a carpenter and he made the most beautiful chairs. And there was something really magnetic about those chairs. You never know what that was. So the king invited him to build a throne for himself, and when he came from the jungle to the palace, the king said, "Go to my warehouse. I have the world's best possible wood, the sandalwood, teak wood, whatever you want, and build a chair, build a throne for me." He goes to the warehouse. After a day of research, comes back, says, "I found nothing there. Can I go back to my jungle?" And then he goes back to the jungle, into the woods. The king hears nothing from him for the next 10 days. And then the king decides to go to the jungle to see what he's doing. And to his surprise, he finds this Zen guru with torn clothes sitting under a tree. And when the king asks him that, hey, what's the status of my throne? He says, look, for the last 10 days, I have been wandering in the jungle, asking every tree whether it wants to become a throne. Perhaps yesterday, I realized that one tree is leaning a bit, and it may want to become your throne. If it agrees, then perhaps I can build your throne, if you know what I mean. So this story captures the gist of what I just said, actually.
So that's really interesting, Vineet. And I just realized that our rapid fire has become a slow motion fire.
Sorry about
But
that.
no. I genuinely meant that as I think it's the first time that it's happened on the Leadership Lounge. But the story was so interesting that I had to ask that. Thank you, Vineet. That's the end of the rapid fire.
That's a relief. Thank you.
Was it so difficult?
Not really, but the word rapid fire these days is a little butterflies you have, But it was good. I love the questions.
Thank you so much. All right. So as we wind down this really sort of enlightening conversation, if I may use that word, because there's a lot of learning nuggets in here that hopefully lots of viewers will watch and learn from. I want to sort of maybe end on a slightly philosophical note. So I'm just going to draw your attention to this photograph that you're going to see here. Yeah. Do you recognize this individual?
Yeah, Antony, this is me at about 18.
Okay.
When I left the village and went to Pune and started studying at an engineering college and also started working as a stockbroking assistant.
If you had an opportunity to, build that time capsule that you're planning to build, or you would have liked to have built, and you can go back and talk to this 18-year-old version of yourself, what would you tell him about, not necessarily about success, but maybe a little bit about leadership, paying it forward, all the lessons that you've learned?
I think the biggest advice for that Vineet I would give is never say never. At that age, I thought I knew everything in the world, and I knew what I wanted to do, and I wanted to become a stockbroker, and I wanted to earn pots of money and be a billionaire, and I wanted to be stinking rich, and even if the way would stink, doesn't matter. But over a period of life, I learned that when you say, I'm going to do this or I'm not going to do this, rather I would say surrender. You surrender to the, whatever you may call it, and I don't want to name that entity what it is, but as long as you have the understanding of its presence, and then you actually become a medium for that entity to guide you through, to navigate your life, to explore things, to make your own mistakes, to not be so definitive of I know it all. So with every passing day, I have started feeling that I am more and more ignorant about the world. So I think that's a nice place to be. But yeah, that's what I would advise, never say never, and stay hungry, stay foolish.
Well, words to live by, words for all aspiring leaders to learn from. And I'm glad that you ended up making the pots and pots of money that you wanted to make when you were 18, except that you made it on a path that was not stinking, but strewn with roses and petals and a lot of fragrance. So thank you so much, Vineet, for sharing your very inspiring story with us on the Leadership Lounge. And best wishes for you and for Armstrong, as for continued success, for more growth, and for more paying back to society in whatever shape, manner or form that you have decided to do. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Antony, and thank you to all your team for having me here, playing a great host and having this great chat here recorded. Thank you so much. Thank you, team.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vineet.